Heta? Please help! You know me! You know me!
In this video, I'm going to break down how I created this scene using Higgsfield. I recently created a short film called Bone Thrown as an entry into an action contest, which required it to be under 5 minutes. That meant I had to cut out some scenes that I really wanted to keep, so I decided to have some fun and build out a scene that was originally cut. Now, before we dive in, Higgsfield reached out to me to share my workflow, so this video is sponsored by them. However, these are all my honest thoughts and my process of using the platform. Now, the majority of my time making an AI film is spent on creating the images that will get used for the video generations. Getting them right is the hardest, most time-consuming part. You can use the create image section, or you can go into the cinema studio and generate the images there. So here in the create image section, I'd normally use Nano Banana Pro or the new Nano Banana 2, although my preference is Pro. Now, if you're using Cinema Studio, you've got a few options here. The new 2.5 has 3 sections. You can choose some presets and a prompt to create some characters. You can then prompt to create your locations, and then go into a scene where you need to select both your characters and location and generate images there. Cinema Studio is useful if you want to create new characters and locations that stay consistent across a whole project. For my scene, I already had my world established, so I prefer just to go straight to create image instead using Nano Banana Pro. So I'm taking my master shot, the wide image of the entire encampment. This is the prompt that I've used because I'm creating a new area that's in between this giant skull and the wall of the encampment. You can see that I've run this prompt lots and lots of times. A lot of them I don't like, but I've flagged a small few that I do like. I try not to go overboard and be prompting dozens of times for every single shot. However, when I'm working on the master shot of a scene, I'm setting up the scene, it might be kind of a new location or new area we haven't seen before, I don't mind doing more generations in that instance, because once you've selected it, you're kind of locked into that setting. So you might as well spend a little extra time up front with more generations and really making sure that you love the environment that you're working with. So I finally landed on an image that I like, and I'm going to run through everything that I did with it because I spent quite a bit of time on this one image. It wasn't the first image of my scene. I only end up cutting to it a handful of times, but it was a really important one because it shows the entire geography, and more or less every other shot that I generated was going to be based off of this. So now I'm going to go through all of the different layers and the changes that I made. Okay, so this was an earlier one, which was to fix this guard tower, which in the original generation is sort of awkwardly straddling across the wall. The first thing I did was I tried to prompt within Nano Banana Pro to move the guard tower inside, and I tried prompting it a couple of different ways and it just didn't work. So I ended up swapping strategies, and I went back through all of the previous generations for this wider shot until I found one where the guard tower was in a similar kind of position and looked correct. So I took that image, cropped just the tower out, and then I tried a new prompt, prompting this image here to make sure that the tower matched the tower from the reference image. I ran that a number of times, and then finally I got this here, and then I just masked it into this image. The next change here was making this wooden structure a lot bigger, a lot more intimidating, make sure that my character Kale was lifted well above the ground. This one was more straightforward. Nano Banana Pro handled it pretty well. I ran that a whole bunch of times, and I ended up picking this one. Typically, what I find when I make changes in Nano Banana Pro, it'll make the changes, but then all the other details in the image typically get a little bit soft, even if I prompt it to keep everything sharp. So I like to just take the element that I've changed and mask that back in. Let's see, the next major change here was bringing my main character in, because without it, if we zoom in, you'll see that this is kind of terrible. You can't really see a specific character there. So you'll see that I just took a 2x3 image out of the middle here, and then I prompted that to insert my main character inside. I got a version that I like, brought that back in, and again, masked it into the bigger picture here. These two generative fill layers here were just fixing up some of these edges here. It's a great use case for Photoshop, is just fixing little things, removing little blemishes. The next layer here you'll see is these men at the campsite. You'll just, essentially I was just bringing a lot more detail back into them. This next one here was just adding in a rope. So this was purely Photoshop generative fill. We had version 1, 2, which I went with, 3, no good. This one is a little bit strange. So I only ended up doing 6 generations of that. I liked number 2 and that worked really well. So I really like Photoshop for kind of in-painting within images. The next change is down here where I wanted my warrior character standing and he's just finished tying up the rope. I ended up using both of these images. So there are some generations where I use this image here with him standing and then some later ones where he's sitting down. The next change I made here was to add a little bit of haze to the background to try to add a little bit more depth. I felt like the skull here seemed almost a little bit too much like a video game or something. So I thought adding a little bit of haze might improve this image overall. Essentially, I just dropped in the image as it was here, prompted Nano Banana Pro to add in some haze in the background, and then masked in the parts that I wanted. Getting this master shot was the first step of me building out this scene. Then I took my 2x3 image of my character here and essentially prompted to get the bone cage on the ground and to have the gate open. I did this a couple of times and then realized that I should remove the character as well. I started to do that, started prompting in 21:9, the ratio that I'm using. So I was prompting for a cinematic medium shot of it on the ground. I played with this a little while until I started to get something closer to what I wanted. This was getting a little bit better. And then I got this, which I was really happy with. So I took this image as my start frame, and then in my prompt, I tagged my main character whom I'd added as a character under Sole ID character. Create new character, upload a number of images. In my case, it was asking for more images. I only had a handful, but I was pretty certain it would be fine. If you were creating an AI character of yourself, of course, it would be easier to add lots and lots of images. I think when I did it, it took maybe 6 or 7 minutes to process that one. And then you'll be able to tag your characters here in the video generator. I ran this a whole bunch of times and went through a lot of bad takes. I needed the character to be kind of thrown in. That's sort of okay. So I had to generate this one a lot of times, recreating or tweaking the prompt in different ways. To generate the rest of the images in the sequence of my main character being lifted up into the air, I ended up using multi-shot, and I used it or tried it out in a couple of different places to get the result I wanted. So I tried out Cinema Studio and selected multi-shot manual. Here you can select, add, create all of your shots, and then essentially prompt for each of the different moments. I added my start and my end frame up to 12 seconds. Now, kind of an odd thing that I found, or a bit of a limitation within Higgsfield, was the Kling multi-shot doesn't seem to be exactly the same as when I've used it in the past. So I believe that Cinema Studio is utilizing Kling 3.0, but for some reason you can only go up to 12 seconds instead of the full 15. Whereas if you go into the main video creator, you can select Kling 3 multi-shot and then go all the way up to 15 seconds here. But then the limitation is that you can't use multi-shot and end frame, which is interesting because you typically can with Kling 3. That's why I was trying it out in Cinema Studio, because I could select multi-shot and I could add a start and an end frame. But then the other limitation was that I could no longer tag my characters that I wanted to appear in the shot. So I had to choose between, is it more important to kind of tag my character or to have an end frame? And honestly, I wanted to do both. And so this was a little bit limiting. So I ended up running this without tagging my character because it was important for me to have the start start and the end frame. And I got a whole bunch of different options. Some were better than others. I know my character wasn't correct here, but that's okay. What Cinema Studio was doing a lot of was kind of ignoring all of my shots. So I've actually prompted here for, if we just look at another one, I kind of prompted for multi-shot, but instead of giving me all of the specific shots, it's just going from my start to end frame and just making one big shot. Even though you can see here, I've got shot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they've got individual prompts. So this wasn't what I was looking for. So I was disappointed in that. So I had to go back to the main video generator and then used multi-shot in here. But now because I couldn't use the end frame, I ended up changing the model from Kling 3.0 down to Kling Omni. So finally, the Kling 3 Omni model was the most helpful because it gave me everything that I wanted. I got a start frame and an end frame. I was able to do multi-shot and specify the specific shots that I was after. And I was also able to tag or bind my character that I'd set up so that my character was consistent throughout every shot. The one downside of the Omni model, and this is the Omni model, not Higgsfield, but it only supports 16:9, so I couldn't do the 21:9 that I've decided to go with for this short film. But that's okay because these first generations were more about finding the angles, and then what I ended up doing was taking those still frames, the ones that I liked the most, and then generating those shots individually. The reason I like this process of using my actual start frame, this is a shot that I truly want, and then using my master shot as the end frame, I'm not actually wanting to use that last shot. That's just kind of a throwaway shot, but the end frame as my master image basically it tells the model the geography so that when I'm prompting for shot 2 of the warrior's hands pulling the rope, and then shot 3 of the metal pulley, and then shot 4 of my character being lifted up into the air, it's able to generate those somewhat accurately because it's got the reference from the end frame that shows where everything is. So I'm not even planning to use that part of this shot, but it was just a way to anchor the model to understand where everything was. And so I ran this generation over and over and over, got varying degrees of shots that I liked. Eventually I picked out the ones I liked the most, and then it was a little more straightforward, just prompting for each individual shot. So as you can see, there's a lot of really bad takes, a lot of stuff that isn't usable. That's just kind of the reality of it. It takes a lot of generations. Do I need to change my prompt? Is it a prompting issue? Could I change the words to kind of make it more specific and kind of get what I want? Finally, these were the still frames that I ended up for each individual shot. And it ended up being a lot easier just prompting for each of the individual shots as opposed to the multi-shot. Then for this last little sequence here where my character Kale sees someone that he knows, that was kind of the same process again, using the multi-shot, and then I also tagged her character here. She was a brand new character, so I used ChatGPT just to come up with a short description, tweaked it slightly, so I came back into Cinema Studio, switched over to image, and then selected the characters section, which is really great at developing characters. I pasted my prompt in, generated it a couple of times just to get a whole bunch of different options to look at, and then I was able to tag her in my video generations. This one took a little bit more time to get right. I ended up having to take some still frames, upscale, enhance the detail in Nano Banana Pro. So for example, I got these two still frames for, I think what was originally a 3-second clip inside of the multi-shot. So I took these two still frames. As you can see, everything else in the image looks really bad. I went into Nano Banana Pro and made sure to kind of up-res the entire image. And then I swapped her out specifically to match my reference whole body shot image of her, and then like I did earlier on, I brought that back into my master shot. And so you'll kind of see I ended up adding her in here, and then also that final shot where you see her leaving the frame. In the actual original video generation, she leaves the frame completely, but when taking a still frame, I went back a few frames to make sure that you could just see her in the edge here so that the model would know that the character needs to go from here to here. And then this formed the start and end frame for that shot where you see her walking out in the film. And as always, you can see we got a couple of really bad takes before we started to get some good ones. So for this entire scene, a little under a minute, I used about 2,800 credits total for both image and video generations. So by using Higgsfield, you can quickly swap between generating and editing the images you need, as well as the video. I like to have two tabs open, one for image generation, the other for video, so I can be creating both at the same time. I'm typically working on the next images whilst I'm waiting on video generations to happen. One thing I really like about Higgsfield is that it bundles all the best models in one place, and they're usually the first to add new ones. And then I've always kind of had one or two of these wrapper platforms. Currently, I'm using Higgsfield for that, because even if one model is kind of the best at the moment, next month that could change. And we've just seen that over and over and over where a new model pops out. There are definitely going to be times that you're going to need different models. And so that's why I like to always have a platform like Higgsfield so that you can get access to all those other models when the best model changes, which is inevitable. They've got all of these tools there, which honestly, I don't really use. I'm a pretty simple guy. I just need a really good image generator and a really good video generator. I know there's like plenty of other tools here, and I haven't talked about them today because I don't use anything else. If you're interested in building scenes or films like this, I've got a link to Higgsfield in the description below. Let me know in the comments what you found most valuable from today's breakdown and what topics you'd like me to cover next. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.